The roar of the crowd washed over me in waves as I sat in the bleachers, trying to focus on the football game unfolding below. It was our high school's homecoming game, and the energy in the stadium was electric. The marching band blasted the school fight song from the sidelines. Cheerleaders launched into synchronized routines, and all around me, students and parents alike jumped to their feet with every successful play. The autumn air carried the scent of popcorn and hot chocolate, mingling with the earthy smell of the field and the crisp October breeze. I should have been caught up in all of it, the excitement, the school spirit, the collective joy of our team actually winning for once. But instead, I found myself stealing glances at him. Marcus sat 2 seats away, separated from me by our mutual friend Jenna. While I hunched into my oversized hoodie, Marcus radiated confidence. He laughed easily with everyone around him, his voice carrying over the din of the crowd. The stadium lights caught in his dark curls and illuminated his profile whenever he turned to cheer. I'd known Marcus since freshman year, but something had shifted between us in recent months. What started as casual conversation in AP literature had evolved into study sessions at the local coffee shop, text conversations that stretched late into the night, and an undercurrent of something I couldn't quite name whenever our eyes met. I'm not good with crowds. Never have been. The sensory overload of so many people, so much noise, so much everything always leaves me feeling drained and slightly anxious. Marcus knew this about me. He noticed things about people, little details others missed. He'd started bringing me coffee before first period, always remembering that I preferred it with almond milk and too much cinnamon. He'd text me memes about books we'd read in class or inside jokes that made me laugh even on my worst days. We developed our own language of sorts, a shorthand that felt intimate in a way I hadn't experienced before. The scoreboard buzzed, signaling halftime, and the crowd's energy shifted. People stood, stretching their legs and making their way toward concession stands. The stadium lights dimmed slightly as the marching band took to the field for their halftime show. In the momentary confusion of movement, Marcus leaned across Jenna and caught my eye. "Want to get out of here for a bit?" he asked, his voice just loud enough to reach me over the crowd. "You look like you could use a break from all this." He gestured vaguely at the mass of people around us. I nodded, grateful for the escape route. We mumbled excuses to our friends about getting snacks and squeezed our way past knees and feet to the end of the row. Instead of heading toward the concession stands with everyone else, Marcus gently touched my elbow, guiding me down the bleacher stairs and around the back of the stands. The sounds of the crowd and the band grew muffled as we ducked beneath the metal framework of the bleachers. It was like entering another world. The space under the bleachers was dimly lit by the overflow of stadium lights filtering through the seats above. Shadows crisscrossed the ground in geometric patterns that shifted whenever someone moved in the stands. The noise of the crowd was transformed into a distant rumble punctuated by occasional stomping feet and muffled cheers. A few other students had found their way to this hidden space, a couple sharing a cigarette in one corner, a group of freshmen giggling over something on their phones in another, but for the most part, we were alone. "Better?" Marcus asked, studying my face with genuine concern. "Much," I admitted, taking a deep breath. "Thanks for the rescue." We found a spot against the concrete wall that formed the foundation of the bleachers. Above us, we could hear the rhythmic movements of the marching band and the announcer's voice echoing through the stadium. Down here, though, it felt like we existed in a pocket dimension, separate from the chaos of homecoming and the expectations that came with it. Our friendship had begun simply enough. We were paired for a project in literature class sophomore year, analyzing symbolism in The Great Gatsby. I was terrified at first. Marcus was popular, athletic, and seemingly existed in a different social stratosphere than I did. But during our first study session, he surprised me by being genuinely interested in my interpretation of the text. He asked questions that made me think deeper about the material, and he listened, really listened, when I spoke. "Remember when we first started hanging out?" Marcus asked now, as if reading my thoughts. He sat beside me, close enough that our shoulders occasionally brushed when either of us moved. "You barely said 3 words to me that first day in the library." I laughed, feeling the tension in my shoulders begin to dissolve. I was intimidated. You are, you know." I gestured vaguely at him, unable to articulate exactly what I meant. "What?" he asked, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. You know exactly what, I said, nudging his shoulder with mine. Mr. Popular, star of the debate team, everyone's favorite person. Marcus looked down, and in the dim light, I thought I saw a flush creep across his cheeks. Is that really how you see me? The question hung between us, weighted with something I couldn't quite identify. Above us, the crowd roared in approval at something the marching band had done. The sound seemed distant, unimportant compared to the conversation unfolding in our hidden corner. I see you, I said finally, my voice quieter than I intended. Not just the parts everyone else sees. I see how you get nervous before debates even though you never show it. I see how you always give your lunch money to that freshman whose parents lost their jobs. I see how you pretend to be confident all the time, but sometimes you're just as unsure as the rest of us. Marcus was silent for a long moment, and I worried I'd said too much, revealed too much of what I'd been observing about him over the past 2 years. But when he finally spoke, his voice had a vulnerability I rarely heard from him. Nobody else sees those things, he said. Just you. The air between us seemed to thicken with unspoken words. I became acutely aware of how close we were sitting, of the way his hand rested just inches from mine on the concrete floor, of the rhythm of his breathing. Can I tell you something? He asked, turning slightly to face me better. Something I've never told anyone else. I nodded, my heart suddenly racing in my chest. I've been pretending for so long that sometimes I forget who I really am, he confessed. At home, I have to be the perfect son. At school, I have to be the guy everyone expects me to be. The only time I feel like myself is. He paused, his eyes finding mine in the dim light. When I'm with you. The honesty in his voice made my breath catch. I'd spent so much time thinking I was the only one harboring secret feelings, the only one analyzing every interaction, every text message, every shared glance for hidden meaning. I'd never considered that Marcus might be doing the same. Why me? I asked, genuinely curious. You could be friends with anyone in school. You could tell your secrets to anyone. Marcus smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes and made the dimple in his left cheek appear. Because you don't expect anything from me. You just let me be. Do you know how rare that is? I didn't know what to say to that. Above us, the marching band's performance was reaching its crescendo. The pounding of drums vibrated through the metal structure of the bleachers, creating a strange, intimate soundtrack to our conversation. There's something else, Marcus said, his voice dropping even lower. He shifted slightly, angling his body toward mine. Something I've wanted to tell you for a while now, but I've been too scared. The stadium lights suddenly dimmed further as the band's performance reached its dramatic finale. In the near darkness beneath the bleachers, I could just make out the outline of Marcus's face, the serious set of his jaw, the intensity in his eyes. I think I'm falling for you, he said, the words tumbling out in a rush. No, that's not right. I know I am. I have been for months, maybe longer, and I've been terrified to say anything because I don't want to ruin our friendship, but I also can't keep pretending that what I feel for you is just friendship because it's so much more than that, and I don't know who moved first. Maybe we both did. One moment we were sitting side by side, confessions hanging in the air between us, and the next moment his hand was on my cheek, gentle but insistent, guiding my face toward his. Time seemed to slow down as we leaned toward each other, both hesitant, both afraid of crossing a line we couldn't uncross. Is this okay? He whispered, his breath warm against my lips. I nodded, unable to form words. And then his lips were on mine, soft and uncertain at first, then with growing confidence as I responded. The kiss was nothing like I'd imagined it would be, and I had imagined it, more times than I cared to admit. It wasn't perfect or polished like in the movies. It was awkward and real and absolutely electric. My hand found its way to his shoulder, steadying myself as the world seemed to tilt on its axis. The stadium lights began to flicker back to life as the marching band's performance ended. Marcus pulled back slightly, his eyes searching mine in the growing light. For a moment, neither of us spoke. What was there to say? Everything had changed in the span of a single kiss. They're coming back, he said finally, nodding toward the bleachers above us where the crowd was settling back into their seats for the second half of the game. We should probably go back too, I replied, though the last thing I wanted was to return to reality, to the noise and expectations of the world above. Marcus hesitated, then reached out and took my hand, intertwining our fingers. We could stay a little longer, he suggested. Just a few more minutes. So we did. We sat there under the bleachers, holding hands and talking in low voices as the game resumed above us. We talked about how long we'd each been feeling this way, about the moments when we'd almost confessed, about the fear that had held us back. Marcus told me about his parents' expectations, about the pressure he felt to be perfect, about his terror of disappointing the people who mattered to him. I told him about my own insecurities, about never feeling like I quite fit in anywhere, about how he made me feel seen in a way no one else ever had. What happens tomorrow? I asked eventually, voicing the question that had been nagging at the back of my mind. At school, I mean. What are we now? Marcus was quiet for a moment, his thumb tracing circles on the back of my hand. What do you want us to be? He asked finally. It was a fair question, but one I didn't have a simple answer to. Part of me wanted to shout from the rooftops that Marcus, the Marcus who everyone admired and respected, had chosen me. But another part, the more realistic part, understood the complications that would come with making our relationship public. Our school wasn't particularly progressive. There would be talk, judgment, maybe worse. I want to be with you, I said honestly. But I'm scared. Marcus nodded, understanding in his eyes. Me too, he admitted. Not of being with you. That's the easiest decision I've ever made. But everything else, it's complicated. We could take it slow, I suggested. Figure things out as we go. We don't have to have all the answers tonight. The relief on his face was immediate. I'd like that, he said, squeezing my hand. One day at a time. Above us, the crowd erupted in cheers as our team scored a touchdown. The bleachers shook with the stomping of hundreds of feet, and for a moment, I imagined what it would be like to be up there with Marcus, openly together, not caring what anyone thought. Maybe someday. We should probably head back before they send a search party, Marcus said reluctantly. Jenna's probably wondering where we disappeared to. I nodded, knowing he was right, but wishing we could stay in our private world a little longer. As we stood to leave, Marcus pulled me close one more time, his arms wrapping around my waist in a way that felt both new and somehow familiar. Thank you, he whispered against my hair. For what? For seeing me. The real me. We made our way back to the bleachers, rejoining our friends who were too caught up in the game to question our extended absence. As we settled into our seats, Marcus sat next to me this time, our shoulders touching in a way that could be interpreted as casual by anyone watching, but that sent electricity through my veins. Under the cover of my jacket, he found my hand and gave it a quick squeeze before letting go. The second half of the game passed in a blur. I couldn't have told you the final score if my life depended on it. All I could focus on was the occasional brush of Marcus's arm against mine, the secret smiles we exchanged when no one was looking, the text he sent me even though we were sitting right next to each other. Best homecoming ever. After the game, as we filed out of the stadium with the rest of the crowd, Marcus fell into step beside me. Our friends walked ahead, debating whether to go to the diner for post-game milkshakes or head straight to the homecoming dance at the gym. What do you think? Marcus asked quietly. Dance or diner? There was a weight to his question that went beyond the simple choice of venue. Going to the dance together, even as part of a group, felt significant after what had happened under the bleachers. It would be our first public appearance, so to speak, with this new understanding between us. Dance, I decided, surprising myself with my boldness. I think I'm ready to face the music. Marcus grinned at my terrible pun, and the sight of his smile made my heart flip in my chest. Dance it is, he agreed. Though fair warning, I have 2 left feet. I've seen you dance at parties before, I pointed out. You're not that bad. I was showing off then, he admitted with a laugh. Trying to impress you, actually. When no one's watching, I dance like a newborn giraffe trying to stand up for the first time. The image made me laugh, and just like that, the tension dissolved. We were still us, still the same people who could talk for hours about books and movies and life. Just with this new layer added to our relationship. It wasn't going to be easy, navigating this transition from friendship to something more, especially in the fishbowl environment of high school. There would be questions and assumptions, and probably some unkind comments along the way. But as we walked toward the gym, close enough that our hands occasionally brushed, I found that I wasn't as afraid as I thought I'd be. The moment under the bleachers had changed everything and nothing at the same time. Marcus was still the confident, charismatic person everyone admired, and I was still the quiet observer on the periphery of social circles. But now we had this secret connection, this shared understanding that felt like the beginning of something important. As we reached the gym doors, the pulsing music and flashing lights spilling out into the night, Marcus paused. Our friends had already gone inside, leaving us momentarily alone in the courtyard. "Ready?" he asked, and I knew he wasn't just talking about the dance. I took a deep breath and nodded. "Ready." He smiled and held the door open for me, and together we stepped into the light, leaving the shadows of the bleachers behind, but carrying the memory of that first kiss with us. A private treasure in a public world, a beginning rather than an ending, a promise of more moments to come. The lights had returned, but the darkness had revealed something beautiful, something I wouldn't trade for all the brightness in the world. As we joined our friends on the dance floor, moving awkwardly to the beat of some pop song I didn't recognize, I caught Marcus's eye across the circle. He winked at me, a small gesture that no one else would notice, but that sent warmth spreading through my chest. Whatever came next, whatever challenges we faced, we would face them together. And that made all the difference. Total _char_count, 17,883.